And
Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matata, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to something else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
And welcome to episode number 220 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes in this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action number 59 from August the 20th, 2003. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the AJ Styles to my Vince Russo. It's Cyndi! Cyndi, how the hell you doing today?
Bro, it's been a fantastic week, bro. I mean, we're just chilling out on the beach, bro, or by some cheap pool right near downtown Nashville, bro.
Didn't I call you the AJ Styles to my Vince Russo?
This is what happens when I am with you 24/7, bro. I start to speak like you, bro.
See, I was fully expecting you to just do a flip into a pool. You know, that was your role in all this.
I'd break my neck if I did a flip into a pool.
Well, as long as you didn't hit on the side of the pool or something. I mean, I'm confident that you won't break your neck with water.
With my weight, there's a possibility.
I do have some fantastic news to kick off this TNA episode.
Oh, do tell.
This being episode number 59, meaning we only have 52 episodes left.
Yay!
52. Now, for those who are like, wait, what do you mean 52? 52 weeks is August 18th, but the last show was September 8th. Good job, whoever the hell you are. The fact is, there's a couple skipped weeks for different reasons. But thank you for your input.
Right. To explain those skipped weeks, it would be the September, I want to say the September 10th or 12th, because 10. September 10th, because that is the 1 cent pay-per-view where it's just hyping up TNA. And then the 2 weeks of year-end 2003, which is Best of X Division 2003 and Best of TNA 2003. We are not covering those. Instead, we are just going to take a break.
Here's a fact, though. It's like, and I know this is the case about the 1 cent pay-per-view, especially, and in the best ofs. It's like every fucking match of any importance. In fact, most of the matches that aren't important too are loaded up with interference. So if you're a first-time viewer, because that's what the 1 cent pay-per-view was meant to do, was try to get some people who'd never watched the show before to tune in, all you're seeing is 5 or 6 matches, and every single match, it's heavy, heavy interference. Every fucking match, to the point where it's like, it's overkill. But, anywho, but yeah, 52 to go, people. 52. And so before we jump into this week's show, again, August 20th, 2003, live from Nashville, we got to tell you what else is happening this week, courtesy of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Now, there is a big angle that we'll talk about later on in the show, but to show you how little I was paying attention to, especially Mike Tenay and Don West doing their on-camera stand-ups, apparently there is 2 people in the crowd, at least most of the night, dressed like Freddy Krueger and Jason. And I went back and saw it, and yeah, there are 2 people there who are very obviously dressed like Freddy Krueger and Jason. And apparently Jason was spending most of the night trying to poke at Mike Tenay to piss him off on camera. And Mike Tenay, who was again, this is all WCW when I tell you this. The announcers were not aware of the angle that we're going to be talking about. And so Mike Tenay just thought it was some stupid fan and just ignored him the whole night. Here's a crazy idea to our good pal Vinny Rue. If you tell the announcers what's going to happen on the show, they can put it over better.
Right.
Just letting you know that. And then the other news, and we can look back at this now, definitely, and say that nothing came of this. But WWE has allegedly reached out to Jim Mitchell, Kid Cash, and Trinity for a spot with the promotion. Mitchell was believed, Trinity mostly was believed, and nobody believed Kid Cash and just figured Cash was making this up so people would, or that TNA might give him a pay increase instead. Um, Now, the story about Mitchell was that they wanted him to come in as the manager of Mortis, the repackaged Chris Kanyon, which is believable in that sense because, Mortis or Kanyon and Jim Mitchell were really tight.
Yeah.
So it made perfect sense that that could happen. However, one of the main reasons why Mitchell doesn't is because the approximate payoffs that WWE had at this point, especially for managers, was low enough that if you factor in road expenses, he would make more doing whatever his shoot job was at this point.
Which was, I believe, karaoke. Like he was he ran a big karaoke business in the southeast, mainly
I think
Florida. But
I believe that was later after his next TNA run. But either way, whatever his shoot job is, even if the actual paycheck was less, it was whatchamacallit, it still ends up being more when you factor everything else in. Because most shoot jobs, I don't know about yours, Cindy, but most shoot jobs don't require you to get a hotel room 200 days a year.
yeah,
Um,
for TNA to work that, it's just
oh yeah,
49.
Yeah, TNA does one show a week at this point. And even like fast forward a few years when Impact starts, like they would tape at least two impacts at a time. So at most, you're looking at 3 to 5 a month that you'd need a hotel room for.
Right.
Still a lot of hotel rooms, but not as many as WWE having you on the road, forever and a day.
Yeah.
Any Anywho, remember like what was it like 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago maybe, when we turned on TNA and we were in the middle of an America's Most Wanted Simon and Swinger match?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I turned the show on this week, and sure enough, we're in the middle of a Jerry Lynn promo. And not that it's never a bad thing to start a show off with Jerry Lynn, even though I'd much rather have a Jerry Lynn match to start the show rather than a Jerry Lynn promo. Still, it's Jerry Lynn kicking off the show. Now, so what I did was, while I was watching this from the Jerry Lynn promo on, I went and hunted down different copies of this particular episode, and I eventually did find one that had the missing 7 minutes at the start of the show. And now, did you ever watch the first 7 minutes? I know you sent me a YouTube clip, but I didn't click on it because I was busy watching the rest of the show and then playing MLB The Show. So I was, you know, ignoring the rest of the world.
I was, full disclosure, I was doing that and watching the CFL. Hail Canadian football and go Argos go. I saw the clip and it explains what happened at the end.
Okay. So, anywho, the show begins with an AJ Styles video package, which is never a bad thing. And this was narrated by Borash. So we're dropping any pretext that Borash is the person who does the video packages at this point. And that segues into an announcement that tonight there will be a 13-man gauntlet match to determine the new number one contender to the world title. And they list off everybody who's going to be in it, including Jeff Jarrett, who I wrote, I thought he was never getting another title match, bro. Which I guess we found a way around that, didn't we?
Sure did, Anti-Herb.
Now, not that we needed, more people in this match, because at the end of the day, I think it was like as close to a perfect number of people, even though I'd make a few substitutions in that, and we'll get to my issues with it when we get to it. But 13 seems like a very random number, and it felt like we're going for the, occult version of 13, the devil version of 13, except they didn't play that up at all. Like I figured that would be the point. It's like, oh, well, it's 13, so it's like, whatever, like just really go into it. But nope, we just decided 13 random people are going to get a shot at the title. And we'll see what happens. Now, from here, we are whisked inside the asylum where the Gathering and Shane Douglas and the Disciples of the New Church are all fighting. Punk is fighting with Jim Cornette's wife, Stacy. And it turns out it's not actually Jim Cornette's wife, Stacy. It's a completely different person named Sin. And turns out it was actually the future, and by future I mean of 2 weeks in WWE, Kazarni. It's actually hilarious. That gimmick literally lasted like 2 weeks. I don't think it. Did he really even have a match on TV? Like I remember there being video packages, and then he just disappeared.
He had 2 matches and they sucked.
I will take your word for it. Then if it wasn't him, who was it that got called up? They did video packages, and then he quit before he actually had a match.
That was Hayde Vanson. He was supposed to wrestle. He was supposed to enter a feud with The Undertaker. The Undertaker was like, ha!
Nah, brah.
Nah, and for the best. And that's the end of that chapter.
You should know, and that the fact that I know everything, and A, I had no fucking memory of Hayde Vanson, and B, not only did you do that, there was no editing. There was no, oh, we sat here for 5 minutes going, huh, who was that person? And Cyndi Googled it, and it's like, oh, it's Hayde Vanson. Like, no, no, no. Cyndi was sitting here, and I said, what was happened to that guy? Who was that? And Cyndi's like, it was Hayde Vanson. Cyndi, you're an appropriate co-host for this podcast for being able to pull Hayde Vanson out of your ass on a moment's notice.
Thank you.
All righty. So yeah, we had a 6-way fight because Brian Lee is gone and Kazarni is in, and Raven drops Shane Douglas with a DDT. This is gonna get really annoying that I keep calling him and Matt Bentley Shane when they become a tag team soon. Spoiler alert. So Raven drops Shane with a DDT and he informs the Mystery Man that the Mystery Man does not want a war. At this point, the lights go out, and we saw the silhouette of Mr. Wrestling 3 standing behind Raven. And eventually, and I do mean eventually, the lights came on, Raven was bleeding, and he was being hung over the top rope. The heels ran away for some reason, while Punk, Julio, and Alexis untied Raven. And they've been telling this story now that, every time Raven's ever had a group of people, he's been the unquestioned leader. He's been a selfish motherfucker, and everybody else does his bidding. But lately, with the Gathering, he's been accepting them more as equals than he ever has before.
Right. I guess that comes down to, I have no idea.
Okay, great. So I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier when the Mystery Man's been in here before, but literally the first thing that popped in my head when he saw the silhouette was, hey, it's Mr. Wrestling 3. Of all the money TNA has ever blown through, they just kept using the same white hoodie. Much like, remember how WCW used that voice box for both the Shockmaster and the Black Scorpion? When you consider all the money WCW wasted, they reused the voice box. all the money TNA wasted, they're just using the same white hoodie for the Mystery Man and Mr. Wrestling 3.
And it's fine, I guess, but it's just, I hope they washed it. They at least spent $1 at the laundromat to wash
it. I would hope so. I would hope so. And this, I mentioned a few weeks ago when the Mystery Man debuted that, in my opinion, it very clearly was Abyss who did it, just the way that, look, we've all seen Abyss reach out and grab somebody. The way they grabbed Raven was very Abyss-like. This was not Abyss. This man was much skinnier, shorter than Abyss. But yeah. So we'll see in, what is it? Actually, a month. We'll see in a month who our mystery person is. And the difference is, and I don't say anybody gave a fuck about the first time we did this, well, not this angle, but the first time we did the Mystery Man angle in this company. This is not the main angle of the show. This is what, at best, the second most important angle on the show?
I'd say
at
third.
Best? Yeah. It's like, it's like, this is like, there's no real, I don't say there's no mystery, but there's nobody really giving two shits, in my
I'll be honest, I think it's fourth.
Opinion.
It's the fourth most important.
Well, I mean, AJ doesn't even have a program right now, so it's like I can't even say that.
Right, but it becomes the third most important after, now.
What?
Because after we'll quickly talk about the Jerry Lynn promo. He's saying that I don't know why Callis is singling Lynn out, but it's kind of obvious because he's going after almost all of the ex-ECW guys.
The problem with that is it's too subtle. If that's the case, then they need to say this. They, like, instead it's just like, oh, he went after New Jack, he went after Sandman, and now he's going after Jerry Lynn, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. And it doesn't help that, like, he's on the rest of the show. Like, he is an authority figure and books matches. At least the one time we've seen him book a match, it's been fairly booked. So it's not like, oh, he's just, a douchebag heel booking a 20-on-1 handicap match. So it's like they're kind of half-assed going here with that. And then it's like, he's not going after Raven. I know Michael Shane doesn't really count, but Michael Shane was in ECW at the very end. He's not going after him. And it's like, I'm sure if I just scroll through, I could find a half a dozen former ECW guys that he's not going after. So it's like, oh, Simon and Swinger. He's not going after Simon and Swinger. But it's like,
but they weren't hardcore wrestlers.
They were in ECW. Like, Jerry Lynn was not a hardcore wrestler. If I'm going to start going after hardcore wrestlers, if I'm going to start going after hardcore wrestlers from ECW, Jerry Lynn is not on the list. But anywho, so Jerry Lynn does do a promo, and he complains that, when he doesn't get paid, this means that he can't pay his mortgage. He can't pay his bills. His daughter has to go without. And so Callis comes up, and they mentioned the angle last week where he broke the he broke the scale over Elix Skipper, and he did some other stuff. And so because he knows that Lynn's going through a tough time, he's only going to fine him $5,000. Which, I'll say this, if nothing else, $5,000 is a very believable amount of money to fine somebody in pro wrestling. Even though, like, we all know, all of us smart marks know, Jerry Lynn was not getting paid $5,000, but still, it's believable. If he'd said, oh, you're being fined $50,000, it's like, okay, fuck off with your $50,000 bullshit. But it was perfectly believable that $5,000 is an appropriate fine.
Yeah. And then he had the line, I know you're having a hard time financially, so let me tell you this. No personal checks.
Yeah, so then the red shirts had to throw Jerry Lynn out of the building, which is important to note for later. All right. Then, and we kind of knew this was going to be first just because for some reason TNA likes having a big gimmick match as the first match on the show, even if nothing else can follow it. We have the first ever Ultimate X match. It is X Division champion Chris Sabin, Frankie Kazarian, and Michael Shane. Now, in case you forget, Sabin's been champion since May and has been feuding with Kazarian pretty much the entire time, with Shane as a recent addition, who debuted about a month ago at this point. Now,
Yeah.
they do make a point of saying that there are no ladders in this, and by and large, with a handful of exceptions, that is a rule that stays to this day. Now, we noted this last week, but I just want to say again, they mentioned Kazarian in his 2014 RF video shoot interview after he left TNA. He noted that originally they hung up poles to each of the 4 posts and then did the wires across and set it up that way. And then thankfully, before the show started, Kazarian went up there to try to get to see what that was like. He jumps up onto the cables and everything proceeds to go and falls inwards to the point where Kazarian, while hanging onto the cables, was now standing in the ring.
Wow.
So they changed it to what it becomes, which was the 4 lighting rigs with the cords strung across. And actually, and this could also explain why this match was sloppy at points, because they ended up having to change all that. These guys didn't have any time to go in and practice the match.
Mm-hmm.
So, now it is, of course, August 2025. Pardon me, and to this day there have been 53 Ultimate X matches. It is by far the most successful gimmick match TNA has ever created, and it is by far the simplest and easiest to understand. We did not need 3 screens full of rules to tell us about it. And ultimately, I say overcomplicating things is TNA's eventual downfall. They overthought when they didn't need to. This match did not have penalty boxes or a funky set that cost $25,000 to put together. This was 4 lighting poles and 2 long cables. That was it. Now, these 3 men are in a combined 31 Ultimate X matches for a total of 13 wins, with Sabin being the all-time record holder for Ultimate X wins with 8. Now, that is the record for, winning Ultimate X. Cyndi, can you tell me who has the record for futility in Ultimate X, meaning that they were in the most number of Ultimate X matches without winning? And I'll give you a hint.
Without winning.
And what was that?
I'm making clear it's without winning.
You're breaking up. It's what?
I'm gonna say
Wait. I'm gonna give you the same hint I gave Trey, and I'll let you know that Trey did not get it.
okay.
It is somebody who is in TNA. I'm not in TNA. It is somebody who's in AEW right now, and his partner, who is also in AEW, is second place for the most number of matches without winning.
In AEW right now?
Yes.
And the partner is also in AEW right now?
Yes. And they are 1-2 in the most number of Ultimate X matches without winning. And Trey was surprised by the person in second place. And if you don't get it, when I tell you who it is, you'll be like, that makes sense.
I was going to say Christopher Daniels.
Sanjay Dutt. That's who Trey said too, Daniels. Sanjay Dutt, 0 for 5. Jay Lethal, 0 for 4.
That means Jay Lethal.
Yep. Jay Lethal is 0 for 4, which was...
That's an impressive stat.
And Sanjay Dutt being 0 for 5 makes sense because, as I termed it, he is the Kofi Kingston of the Ultimate X match. Kofi Kingston has been in 20 Royal Rumble matches, and he is never going to win. He's never going to be a serious candidate to win. However, Kofi Kingston is in Royal Rumbles like how Sanjay Dutt was in Ultimate X matches because somebody in there has to put on a show, and Sanjay Dutt can definitely put on a show in a match like an Ultimate X match.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, when they did the Destination X gimmick in 2012 when Austin Aries gave up the title, I thought Sanjay was going to win that. But that was also the one where, like, whether or not he really got hurt, they either did a real injury or a worked injury with Sanjay. Um, and then he came back and still lost, which made zero sense. Anywho,
Just
so
another
on,
lol TNA moment.
yes. So on to this match, and we'll get to the issues with it. But for historical purposes, Chris Sabin was the first person to ever try to shimmy across the cables, but Shane yanked him down. By the way, Michael Shane, not to be confused with Shane Douglas, who I just spent the last match saying Shane over and over and over again. Anyway, the first big spot of the match was Sabin piggybacking on Kazarian, and Shane, in the middle of trying to climb, changed tacks and went for Hurricanrana. However, Sabin wasn't able to properly flip, and instead he fell face first onto the mat. And I think that's one of those things where it's like, okay, we didn't have time to really think about this. Because Sabin, like, again, like, it sounds so simple, but again, he is sitting on Kazarian's shoulders, meaning that he would have to clear Kazarian and then do a front flip. It was a nice idea. It didn't work out in execution.
No, it
Uh,
didn't.
moment, Moments later, he knocked both of them off the cables with a missile drop kick, so he's okay. Shane took a shot with a chair, and then the local Nashville blood banks were out looking for donations as Shane was leaking blood. Kazarian gave Sabin a catatonic on a chair. At least if you're going to steal Chris Harris's finish, they at least one-upped it here.
Mm-hmm.
Sabin began shimmying and got knocked down with a chair. However, the title belt came down with it. Um, Now, Kazarian, Sabin, and Shane, to their credit, did keep wrestling, and eventually Andrew Thomas stopped the match so they could rehang the belt. Now, here's where the issue is, because it falls down a second time in a minute. The black shirt security crew are the ones that come down to put it back up there. And I imagine, because this is not a problem they've ever had again with the title belt. Emphasis on with the title belt. The problem is that you could tell that they didn't want to really strap it up there because they didn't want to have that awkward moment where the winner is fighting to unhook the belt, which is a fear sometimes when you do these kind of things, especially when you're dangling by one arm up there trying to do it. The problem is by doing it half-assed like they do, the belt the belt isn't firmly up there. You need to connect those goddamn connecting thingies there at the end. Um, and so they didn't. And like I said, it happens a second time here in a couple minutes. Um, and but yeah, and the second time it happens, they basically had to do the same thing. Now they tried to do a spot where Sabin had Shane up in a fireman's carry, and Kazarian was going to come off the top rope with a sunset flip, and they were basically going to roll over, and Sabin was going to land on his feet and then do a sitting drop kick while also giving Shane a Samoan drop. The problem with that is that Kazarian, to try to, keep in mind that he's going to jump over two people at this point, Kazarian jumps far over both people. And let's say we finally discovered that Chris Sabin's tights are definitely made out of spandex.
Yep.
Because when he went over, Chris Sabin's tights were about 5 feet on the other side of Chris Sabin's ass. And they didn't rip. They were not Rory Fox on that episode of ECW that time against Matt Cardona. But they covered that up. And Sabin powerbombed Shane off the cables a few minutes later in what was a bit of a contrived spot, but you could argue where Shane was trying to kick Sabin and somehow got his feet caught behind Sabin, but still a little contrived there. Kazarian speared Sabin off the cables, which is where the belt fell for a second time. After it got hung back up, Kazarian and Shane were fighting with Kaz on the top rope and Shane on the lighting rig, and Shane took a bump off the rig to the floor. And again, he was basically on the level of the top rope, taking a bump, 8 feet to the floor, 7 feet to the floor?
Yeah, about 8 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. The finish. The finish, and I still remember this, so it really tells you this was one Ultimate X finish that stood out. Sabin and Kazarian, they're fighting in the middle. They've both gone on opposite sides. They're fighting in the middle. Kazarian has knocked Sabin off. And now Kazarian's going to finally win the X Division title. The title that keeps being stolen from him for one reason or another. He is finally going to win when out of nowhere, Michael Shane, if you could run across cables, that is what Michael Shane was doing here as he fucking scurried across those cables and yanked down the belt. Like while Kazarian was standing there with his thumb up his ass, Shane is already flying across, grabbing the belt, dropped to the mat, and Michael Shane is your new X Division champion.
It was. I originally said it was a great match, but then you questioned me on that, and I explained why. And I said
Well,
to you,
since
quote,
all of our listeners are not on my Facebook page,
yeah. And we talked about this. It was they greatly overestimated how strong the clasps would be for that belt. But I think you had it right where Santel and Vaughn didn't hook it correctly. And plus, isn't this also why when we had future Ultimate X matches for the title, not with that X, but for the title, that it gets put on a hook?
see, I know the next time they don't have a hook, they instead make it worse. And I guess we'll see because I saw that match once and it's like I remember not being impressed by it. They put a cord above the Ultimate X structure to hang the belt off of the second time.
Yeah.
And of course, the problem with that is, as you could probably imagine, you know, it's hard enough climbing and grabbing a thing when it's right there. It's another when it's a foot above right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I am torn on this match. I am not going to knock them for things that weren't their fault. But there was a bit of sloppiness during this match. Although I do applaud the creativity and take my hat off to them for setting the stage for the high wire free for all that still drives fans crazy to this day, over 2 decades later. Plus, and this is where it kind of gets funny, they maintain their composure a lot better than when Shane and Sabin are in an Ultimate X match 2 years from now when the X kept falling down and had that great moment of P. Williams praying underneath the X and the X falling into his hands.
It was a thing of beauty, though, wasn't it?
Yes. Although Sabin
the
and
wrestling gods are like, your prayers have been answered. Boom! Yeah!
Sabin and Shane, though, threw a massive hissy fit on camera when that happened. So we'll see when we get that far. Mm-hmm. Now, I ultimately I gave the match a 6.0 out of 10.
I will give it a 7 out of 10 for historical importance, and that's the good news. The bad news is I know what this Michael Shane title run is going to look like. We're in for some rough sledding.
Is it better or worse than the Sonny Siaki X Division title reign?
Much worse.
I don't think that's possible.
Oh.
And in 2025, We just watched a 9-month exhibition title reign by Moose. I mean, the bar for bad exhibition title reigns, I think, is a little too high for Michael Shane to beat that, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, but when your title reign is mainly all pixie dust and bullshit, like you win via serendipitous means.
Well, thank you for spoiling the next 4 months of TV for me. Um,
You already knew
outside,
that,
Scott
anyways.
outside, Scott Hudson is witnessing a hearse being pulled into the arena. Sonny Siaki and Trinity are apparently there as a coffin is being taken out. Siaki said that they are mourning the death of D'Lo Brown's career. I can't wait to bitch about that segment.
Oh, it's a truly terrible segment. And
All right, up next, it was America's Most Wanted versus Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger in a non-title double bull rope match. The production crew were really on point today as they had not one, but two fuck-ups. As Simon and Swinger's graphic listed them as the World Tag Team Champions of the world, and America's Most Wanted's graphic did not list them as the champions. At this point, I think it's bring your child to work and have them do your job day at the TNA offices.
yeah, it was. However, we have a debut.
Who?
Not who, what?
Of what?
The true America's Most Wanted theme. Guilty.
Didn't even notice it.
Really?
Really? I mean, Simon and Swinger got a new theme too. I noticed theirs, but I was too busy gawking at the production staff fuck ups.
How
Um,
how high do you
now
have your audio for when you watch the show?
high enough that sitting 6 feet from my 60-inch TV, I can hear it just fine.
Maybe crank it up one or two notches. You could actually hear the theme songs, and then turn it back down the two notches when the match starts.
I think I'm fine where I am, but thank you. Now, this match probably went like 10 minutes, and for the first 5 or 6 minutes, there was nothing really to talk about. It
No, it
was a
wasn't.
four-way brawl, and the good news is that because it's impossible to enforce tag team rules in a bull rope match, I am not going to go crazy by the selective enforcement of the rules in an AMW match. Personally, I would have loved to see the referee try to force James Storm to stand on the apron and waiting for a tag while tied on a bull rope end to Johnny Swinger in the ring with a 2-on-1. I would have loved to see that personally, but thankfully they didn't actually do that. So Swinger gave Storm a suplex on the exposed concrete floor outside the ring and then brained him with a cowbell. As the match continued, Simon accidentally hit Swinger with a chair for a false finish, and then Swinger literally lifted Storm up into the air with a low blow. Harris managed to spear Simon through the ropes to the floor. Gilberti threw Jeremy Borash into the guardrail because Jeremy Borash still has to be part of this feud for some reason. And Swinger pinned Storm with a shot with the tag team title belt. And I wrote, hey, Johnny Swinger actually won a match in TNA. I was starting to question that between this run and his 2020 to 2023 run, if that ever happened. And then after the match, we had to get more heat. We got a 3-on-2 beatdown on AMW, and eventually the heels were left standing. This was certainly not just a different match, but also a good match. We'll give them a thumbs up here. And Simon and Swinger won, and I gave that another 6.0 out of 10.
It was a 6.0 for sure. And
Oh, did you ever
we're
give
gonna
a
see
rating to the Ultimate X match?
I did. I gave it a 7.
Go ahead.
I mean, for historical importance, and it wasn't it was an enjoyable match and a good proof of concept.
Yes, it turns out when you put people in a match that they might excel in, you get a good match. Like putting Abyss in an Ultimate X match, which spoiler alert happened. That is not using someone to their strengths. You know, Chris Sabin should not be in a double bull rope match, and Abyss should not be in an Ultimate X match. And this is not just me ripping on TNA, because Big Show and Mark Henry should not be in ladder matches.
Keep them to something safe, like stairs matches.
Of course, I mean, who doesn't love a good stairs match? Although that was the Big Show and Eric Rowan. Big Show and Mark Henry had the big ass chair match. If you remember the big ass chair that they had.
I want that big ass chair.
I bet it was a comfortable big ass chair.
Yeah.
Backstage, Scott Hudson is with the Gathering. Julio screamed that Raven is severely injured, and they are challenging Shane Douglas to a tag team match. I guess they didn't really challenge Shane Douglas to a tag match, did they? But either way, Shane, Sin, and Slash ran in, and we had a six-way brawl. Then, because this, again, it's like one of those weird ADD episodes of TNA where it's like we simultaneously have good shit, and then we still have to have the Vince Russo 800 things happening every 5 seconds shit. So while they're fighting, we immediately are whisked to the ring where Sonny Siaki is now in the ring with Trinity. We really rushed everybody out of the ring a minute ago because, again, at least all the in-ring shit is live. I don't know if anything backstage is pre-taped or not, but all the in-ring shit is live, meaning that Harris and Storm got their asses kicked, and we had to rush them out of the ring in 30 seconds so we could get Siaki and Trinity to the ring.
Oh, good lord.
So Sonny did his eulogy for D'Lo Brown, calling D'Lo fat and a loser. During the speech, a coffin was wheeled to ringside. Trinity respectfully left some black roses on the coffin. And of course, it ended up being D'Lo Brown hiding in his own coffin to come out and attack Siaki and Trinity. Now, this is a very Vince Russo gimmick, and we'll say at least D'Lo Brown is a lot more flexible than Kevin Nash was that time when Nash could not get out of the coffin on a live Nitro. However, with that said, because remember when Russo was on WrestleCrap Radio and every time RD asked him about something stupid, he would say, "If this was real, bro, could this really happen?" So if this was real, bro, D'Lo Brown, at some point, long before the show began, found this coffin, knew that Sonny Siaki was going to wheel it to the ring to cut a promo with. He went and hid in the coffin. He took a ride in a hearse from wherever to the asylum. He then remained in the coffin while being carried out while Sonny Siaki was cutting his first promo. And then he waited until the magic point later in the show when Sonny Siaki was cutting his second promo to come out and attack Sonny Siaki.
This whole segment was bad.
And let's say Sonny Siaki never looked inside the coffin. Let's say Sonny Siaki came out, cut his promo, did not go over to the coffin. Trinity did not put black roses on the coffin, and they just left. Would D'Lo Brown still be in that coffin to this day, waiting for Sonny Siaki to one day come and open the lid?
No, because he would just be bones right now.
Well, then he'd still be in there.
But he wouldn't be alive.
I never said he wouldn't be alive. I just said he'd still be in there. Then, because, and this is my guess that the backstage stuff had to be live because that segment with D'Lo and Siaki and Trinity went like 2 minutes. And these things were going back to back to back so fast that I doubt that enough time had passed for them to clean up after the brawl with the Disciples and the whatchamacallit and the Gathering. So like Trinity, Jesus Christ. Tenay and West had to cover it up at ringside by starting to talk about whatever because they tried to pitch it to Scott Hudson and then changed their mind and did it on camera instead. Then we finally went to Scott Hudson, who was backstage with Christopher Daniels and Legend, who, by the way, as a reminder, because it actually literally never got brought up the first hour of the show. Christopher Daniels and Legend have a tag team match against Jeff Jarrett and Eric Watts. And actually, when they did that graphic for the gauntlet at the beginning, I originally wrote, what happened to that tag match that we were going to get with Jarrett, Legend, Daniels, and Watts? Well, apparently people are just going to work twice this show. Um, you know who? This might be the first time these two people have ever been compared to each other. But when I saw Legend, you know who I immediately thought of when I saw his gear, especially, and how he looked in his gear? Braden Walker.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Just Joe. I'm here to knock your brains out.
Just Joe, and I'm here to knock your brains out. Who? Yes, Armando Estrada really did fuck up that knock knock joke, because when Braden Walker said that, you're supposed to say, I'm Braden Walker and I'm gonna knock your brains out. Who? We never got the punchline, I guess.
The punchline, he lasted 3 more weeks and he was out of the company.
That whole thing was so fucked up. That was the beginning of like what we saw later on with Vince having no fucking patience. Like when he fired not the Hurt Syndicate, the Hit Row after like 2 weeks. And when he spent 6 months building up to the debut of Veer, and then Veer was gone in 2 weeks. And not to mention like Emelina and everybody else. It began with Braden Walker.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, MVP and a t-shirt and pants is just weird looking.
Yeah, it is. It's baffling.
So anyway, Legend says that Jarrett and Watts may be heroes to the local losers, but legends live forever. And then Daniels vowed to destroy Jarrett and Watts. All right. Then we get the Sin, who is not Jim Cornette's wife, Stacy, and Slash, who is not a guitar player for Guns N' Roses, with Father James Mitchell, who may or may not be a father, versus Julio De Niro and CM Punk with Alexis Lurie. It will never not be weird to see CM Punk doing dives. And I know, like, he did that dive to Moxley at All Out when he tore his tricep that time. But, like, that's what made it weird, was because CM Punk doesn't do dives. And CM Punk, high flyer, is the one thing I was not expecting to get out of rewatching wrestling in 2003. So they get the heat on Punk when he ran off the ropes and Sin pulled on the top rope, causing Punk to tumble to the floor. They hung Punk over the top rope by his legs and slashed at a running drop kick, causing Punk to crash onto the floor. Did you notice West kept calling Punk CM? The only other person I've ever heard calling Punk CM was Mike Adamle, which is not the best comparison we ever want to make with commentators here.
No.
Julio got the Go ahead.
And I thought it was fine. I thought it was just general Don West weirdness.
Yes. So it's funny because, like, if this is his real name, his first name is CM, but no one ever calls him his first name. Wow, what am I fucking saying? Julio got the hot tag, and we proceeded to have a series of spots where two decent-sized white men with long black hair and black leather pants worked over each other. Slash threw powder in Punk's face, and Punk took a super bomb for a near fall. Punk and Julio hit a combo powerbomb blockbuster, but Slash broke that up. Mitchell got halfway in the ring, so Alexis ran in and kicked the ropes. She then hit a perfectly timed Hurricanrana on Slash, and then the finish got a little fucked up here as Shane Douglas ran down and hit Julio with the chain, which let Slash win. However, the fuck up part was when he did this, Alexis got into the ring, but then realized she wasn't supposed to and had to get back out of the ring even though her guy was getting fucked over. After the match, Shane gave Alexis a belly-to-belly suplex and then cut some of her hair. If women weren't constantly being assaulted on this show, I may care. I gave this match. There's nothing wrong with this match. Just the three matches we've seen so far, it's the weakest of the three. I gave it a 4.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 4 out of 10. I really never got into this match, and once again, it's yet another post-match beatdown.
Yes. Vince Russo
It,
only knows how to do a couple things, and one of them is the post-match beatdown.
yep, and it doesn't really advance the story at all. I mean, I
It,
think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're either at the point or almost at the point where Alexis is gone. She gets signed by WWE.
I thought she was around until 2004, but I could be wrong. By the way, since we're speaking of Alexis and thus speaking of women, you know what I'm really fucking happy for? There was no fucking segment this week with Bitch Slap and the dancers.
I think those are done.
Oh, speaking, we didn't mention this. Why was Jerry Lynn talking to Athena backstage?
They're just friends.
There was like it wasn't even like mentioned. It was just like she was there so Don Callis could tell her to fuck off, and it never got mentioned by the announcers, and it was forgotten by us to the point that we're an hour into the show and I'm like, oh yeah, remember when that happened? But yeah, it's like Vince Russo realizes that it can get heat by having a man beat up a woman. The problem is he books it so fucking often that nobody gives a shit. And also, Alexis will be back next week. I mean, I haven't watched the show. I'm pretty sure Alexis will be here next week, and it won't fucking matter. And when we say, by the way, he was cutting some of her hair, it's like, you know, he gave her a trim. He cut off about half an inch of hair. Uh, so okay. Then we get this preposterous interview. And I know we don't make it a habit on this show of playing the audio because how do you decide which 12-minute promo to air from these shows? Well, Cyndi, I hope you're ready because I've decided to play the audio of this Mike Tenay interview with Eric Watts.
I wish you didn't, because I'm on a time crunch.
Oh my
Let's just,
God.
let's just
So,
skip it.
well,
Just
I'm gonna skip playing it. But so Eric Watts is being interviewed by Mike Tenay. And Tenay wants to know how he became director of authority. And Watts, they need to prepare these fucking people for these interviews because apparently everyone thinks they're going to outtalk Mike Tenay, and nobody on this fucking program can outtalk Mike Tenay. Anyway, Watts tried to say that they couldn't bring in a legend, so they brought him in instead, which was quite the self-own, if I do say so myself. Then
Oh
they
yeah.
tried to explain this fucking thing, and it made zero fucking sense because he had the wrong person trying to explain it. And I figured out what he was trying to say. But Eric Watts started saying how TNA owns 51% and they control the marketing aspect while the NWA runs the wrestling aspect. What the fuck does that even mean? What does
It does.
TNA own 51% of? Are you trying to say TNA owns 51% of TNA? Because that don't make no sense. Then Watts said that he got blackballed by the company and had to wrestle on Explosion. That's not what it means to be blackballed. If you were blackballed, you would not be wrestling on Explosion. Watts then said AJ Russo and Don Callis had a gay three-way last week, and Watts said there's not enough room in TNA for both he and Vince Russo. So what they're trying to do, and this is fucking preposterous when you think about it, they're trying to run an angle where TNA is the heel and the NWA, representing traditional wrestling, is the babyface. That is what Eric Watts was trying to say, and because TNA owns 51% of this corporation, then whatever TNA says goes, even if it may not be best for the company. But that's why we have two different authority figures. That's why the company is called NWA Total Nonstop Action. Again, TNA, which is the company that this whole fucking thing is, they're positioning as the heel.
I haven't been more baffled by a sit down promo for its awfulness since the Amazing Red promo. But that promo, he didn't
He
know
was
how to
nervous
talk.
as fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
he's not somebody who cuts promos.
no, he's somebody who does a whole bunch of cool moves.
Yes.
It is, it made the company stupid. It made Eric Watts even stupider. And
Like it made no sense even
what's
if
the
you
point?
like yeah. It made zero sense if you weren't a smart fan because you had no idea what the hell they were talking about. And if you did figure out what the hell they were talking about, it was really stupid. Because again, TNA, the company, they're turning heel. This would be almost like something they should do in 4 years when the NWA splits from them. It's like, oh, we're turning the NWA heel and making TNA the company. Kind of like, I guess, kind of like this is almost like when World Class becomes the USWA. They turned World Class heel in that. And here's the thing that TNA may not be aware of: World Class went out of business. The USWA went out of business. This was not a successful angle to turn the company heel. Eh, whatever, I guess. We then get a video of AJ Styles and Vince Russo vacationing. They were at a hotel pool. The highlight, by far, was AJ Styles saying he was practicing something all week for Vince, and AJ did a flip into the pool. That was actually funny.
Do you recognize the flip?
Was it the Fosbury flop?
Yeah, it was the Fosbury flop.
Not the Fosbury flop, the spiral tap.
Yeah, spinal tap or spiral tap or whatever it is.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, it was still funny because, like,
Mhm.
he's practicing his flips for Vince Russo. Eh, all right. So there, I kind of said something nice about a segment with Vince Russo in it. Everyone can now go to sleep peacefully tonight.
And it was short. It was like only
Yes.
a minute.
Okay. Speaking of things that were not short, Legend and Christopher Daniels versus Jeff Jarrett and Eric Watts. So it's a Jeff Jarrett match, so of course the match starts with a fight around the building. There was a famous ECW match where Terry Funk and Sabu, they were in a tag match, and their partners, I forget who was on whose side, but it was Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton were in there as, a lawsuit settlement with WCW. They brought in Arn and Eaton. Um, at one point, Terry Funk and Sabu have a Terry Funk and Sabu match, and Arn Anderson and Bob Eaton just stand there in the ring and watch them. Kind of like, well, what the hell are we supposed to do? And just stood there and let them do their thing. I want to see that in a Jeff Jarrett match because every Jeff Jarrett match is let's brawl around the arena. I want to see a tag match where him and somebody are brawling and the other two people are just standing there in the ring like, okay, we'll wait. You do your thing. Um, so back in the ring, Legend gave Jarrett a drop toe hold where Jarrett landed on Daniel's knees, which was definitely a unique little spot there to get the heat. And Eric Watts, the director of Authority, apparently decided rules for thee, not for me, because twice they did the, babyface gets the tag behind the referee's back and they cut him off spot. And so twice Watts had to be pushed out of the ring. And ultimately, Watts decided F that, and he just got in the ring and started wrestling. Watts gave Legend the double bird and said, fuck you, very loudly into the camera. Now, Cyndi, you remember like a month ago when New Jack said the F word and got fired?
Yeah.
I have a spoiler for you. Eric Watts will not be fired.
What a shame.
Yes. The finish came out of nowhere as Jarrett pinned Legend with a schoolboy. After the match, the heels attacked the faces, and Legend waylaid Jarrett with a chair while Daniel slapped the back of Jarrett's head repeatedly. Eventually, the incompetent black shirts ran in. The red shirts ran down to help break it up. At least the black shirts didn't have to hang a title belt up this time. Uh, Chris Vaughn, who's one of the black shirts, randomly slapped Kevin Northcutt, who's one of the red shirts, so Northcutt broke him in half with a spear. Jerry Lynn, who you recall was thrown out of the building earlier in the show, ran back in and attacked Northcutt, but eventually the red shirts got the advantage and dragged Lynn kicking and screaming out of the building. Meanwhile, remember the 4 people involved in the match? They're still fighting. Eventually, Freddy Krueger and Jason handcuffed Watts to the guardrail. This was not me being facetious. That's what happened. Jason then gave Jeff Jarrett a Styles clash because, gasp, it's AJ Styles and Vince Russo. Russo screamed at Jarrett that he would never get no title match. Eventually, AJ and Daniels team with Legend to give Jarrett the Shield triple power bomb through a table because I mean, hey, they did it 10 years before the Shield, but that's the first thing you think of. It's, oh, they're the Shield. The heels then took Jarrett out of the building and they put him in a hearse with Russo and AJ and drove off. I gotta say, if being in the hearse was so bad, then why did AJ and Russo get in too? Now, Cyndi, I was halfway through the gauntlet match when I remembered that this segment started with a match that I never went back and gave a rating to. Because the post-match was at least as long as the match, if not longer. And it involved what? How many people? Like another 5, 6, in addition to the 4 that were originally in the match to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
2.5.
Jeff Jarrett, I gave it a 5.
Wow, you are generous.
It was a 2-on-1 handicap match. You know, it's what we're gonna say. Eric Watts did nothing but did a run in for the finish. So then we get a wacky video promoting the return of Rowdy Roddy Piper, who will be back at some point in the future. And then Dusty Rhodes did a videotape promo saying that he and Glenn Gilberti next week will have a bull rope match. I guess he didn't actually say that they were going to have a bull rope match. He just said he was coming back for Glenn Gilberti, and we got a graphic on the screen saying that they were going to have a bull rope match.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay. Now, I love Don West. Don West is a great pro wrestling color commentator. He is like, he is the right level of excited, you know, especially once that first few months got out of the way where he had never really watched wrestling before and no idea what the hell he was doing. So once we got that out of the way and he, you know, ended up being a good announcer here. I love the guy, but he did the plug for next week. And normally there's nothing wrong with a Don West plug for next week. 1 second here. However, he says that next week, Michael Shane will finally defend his title. Like, motherfucker, he just won the damn belt tonight. What do you mean finally will defend his damn title? But also, we're going to have Rhodes versus Gilberti, D'Lo versus Sonny Siaki, and AJ versus the winner of the gauntlet match for the World Heavyweight title. And by the way, since I'm also half watching Collision during this, I just want to once again profess my undying love for Julia Hart. Just, she's one after my heart. But back to the actual thing. So yes, next week, I'm not jumping for joy with this show we got next week. What say you, Cyndi?
I'm not jumping for joy either. I think this is going to be a disaster.
I was going to say, if Cyndi hadn't answered, I would have said, and I'm sure if Cyndi was with us, she would agree with me.
Right, but now we have the gauntlet match.
By the way, Anna Jay is coming out with some random dark-haired woman in black gear. I don't know who the hell that was.
Thekla?
Was it? No, because Thecla's with Julia Hart's group, isn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
Who is it?
It was
It's Julia Hart, Sky Blue, and who's the third one?
it. It is Thecla.
So who came out with Sky? Not Sky Blue. Who came out with Anna Jay? I guess who gives a shit? Obviously, it's very important that I recognize the random dark-haired woman on a taped episode of Collision. Um, if I was going to start questioning everything on AEW, I'd wonder why they're giving away hundreds of $1,000s on random mid-card matches every week. But, whatever. All right, so 13-man gauntlet match. Winner gets a world title match. And I will say this. For the most part, if you're going to do a 13-man gauntlet match with the top contenders to the world title, they got at least 10 of them right. We'll say that. It's not one of those, we're going to fill this thing up with filler guys that have no business being in a number one contenders match. By and large, I'd say they got most of these choices for the match right. So number one was Kid Cash. Number two was Ron the Truth Killings. Now, going into this match, I had no idea who was going to win, even though once it got to the end, it was kind of obvious. But here's one thing I know about TNA. They love doing the Royal Rumble, and specifically, they love doing the 1995 Royal Rumble, where Shawn Michaels started number one and went coast to coast and won it. As a matter of fact, I am pretty damn sure if you go through the history of TNA gauntlet matches, the number that has produced the most number of winners is number one, because they love doing that coast to coast gimmick. And so, with that said, I'm sitting here like, well, I guess Kid Cash is the odds on favorite to win. And I'm like, oh, AJ versus Kid Cash for the world title could be really fucking good. But spoiler alert, Kid Cash does not win this match. Borash was so tongue tied when he was reading the rules that Tenay had to spend 30 seconds basically rereading them once the match began. Cash hit a double springboard hurricane as time expired. Number three is Christopher Daniels. And I want to point out the crowd was not quiet for this match. They were making a lot of noise in this match. However, Ron Killings needs to stop wearing chains on his belt and his pants, because those fucking chains are making so much noise. And, Cyndi, who's over there going, you didn't notice AMW had a new theme song, but you noticed those stupid chains on R-Truth's pants? I say yes, because they were overwhelming onto the audio system because of the mic underneath the ring. Number four, BG James. So 3LK did a double claw on Cash and Daniels, but Cash, who's the one that brought the claw into TNA, broke it up. Number five is Sonny Siaki. Siaki wrestles so infrequently that it took me a minute to remember the last time he wrestled on this show. Number six is Jeff Jarrett's music, but the man himself is getting a ride around Nashville currently. So Siaki helpfully cut a promo telling us that Jeff Jarrett will not be here. I thought that was nice of him to let us know, Cyndi. I don't know about you.
It's a public service that he did.
Yes. Number seven is D'Lo Brown, who went after Siaki and eventually eliminated him. Mad Mikey stomped out and threw a tantrum about not being in the gauntlet. I'm not sure how mad he would have been if he discovered that his headset didn't work. Number eight is The Abyss. And I'm like, maybe Abyss wins this. Mikey continued to throw a tantrum. I mean, I figure at this point, we have at least one empty spot, possibly two. Might as well throw Mikey in there. And I guess Mikey went into business for himself because Mikey just got in the ring and got thrown right out. So Abyss got rid of both Truth and BG, including one spot where Truth got caught on a sidekick and got heaved out. Number nine was the Sandman. Abyss threw out Kid Cash because, all heels are stupid in battle royals. Sandman confronted Abyss, which admittedly I was perversely intrigued by the idea of Abyss versus the Sandman.
You mean AJ versus the Sandman?
Well, that's later. I said I was perversely intrigued by a match with Abyss and the Sandman. So Sandman caned Abyss and got laid out with a black hole slam. Number 10 is Legend. Number 11 is Conan grabbing his crotch. Conan reached out and touched Legend's groin with the back of his foot, so Legend nailed him with a high kick. Abyss and Legend heaved Sandman out, thus ending my dream of watching AJ Styles versus the Sandman in a world title match. Number 12 is Shane Douglas, which means, because I pay attention to the opening of the show, which meant that Raven was going to be number 13. Conan backdropped Legend out of the ring, which I was a little surprised by. Shane raked D'Lo's face. And then number 13 was not only Raven's music, but Raven himself. So I would like to point out, in the past 90 minutes, Raven didn't bother to clean all the dried blood off of his face. Instead, he comes out covered still in dried blood. Dude, you gotta take care of yourself. This is a sport and industry that's about how you look, and aesthetic pleasure is very important to pro wrestling companies. You can't just walk out there covered in blood. So Raven tossed Abyss, which I was also surprised by, but again, they have not been doing a great job with protecting Abyss as a monster. But Conan gave Daniels a border toss of all things. Daniels then eliminated Conan with a kick to the back of the head. I won't bother asking for physics in that, since the all-time corniest Battle Royal elimination was when Big John Studd gave Akeem a forearm to the back during the 1989 Royal Rumble, and Akeem jumped over the top rope from it. Daniels used an angel's
It was a
wings on
disaster.
Yes. Daniels used an angel's wings on D'Lo and then tossed him. I was more surprised that it wasn't a bigger deal that D'Lo got eliminated, which I guess really tells you that D'Lo Brown main event push is OVER over.
I think the D'Lo Brown push is OVER over.
Oh, doesn't he win the tag team titles at some point?
Not until later when he's with Aces and Eights.
No, he wasn't the tag team champions in Aces and Eights. Aces and Eights were never tag team champions. The only belt they ever had was Bully Ray was the world champion. I'm sorry, Devon was the TV champion, but that was as useless as not being a champion. And no, wasn't D'Lo the tag team champions? Like, they defeat Kid Cash and Lance Hoyt by disqualification, and then lose the belts back by disqualification like the next week.
No, you're right.
I can't even tell you who D'Lo Brown teamed with, except D'Lo Brown won the tag team titles by disqualification. Spoiler alert, because I know it happened. Well, it happens at some point in the next 52 episodes, so they know it's on a weekly pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's closer to not 52 because the final champions of the weekly pay-per-view are the Naturals. Spoiler alert. So, anywho, Raven catapulted Daniels out, leaving us with Raven versus Douglas. I wrote Daniels, but it's Raven versus Douglas as the final two. Now, me being the nitpicky human being that I am, Raven and Douglas immediately both flung themselves over the top rope. In my mind, that means Jeff Jarrett is the winner because Jeff Jarrett never got in the ring to lose. But that's just me being nitpicky here. But anyway, using that logic, Curtis Axel is still waiting for his WrestleMania main event world title match. This match between two people in a blood feud transitioned into a grappling match that Raven eventually won with an even flow DDT. Now, I felt this was a pretty average gauntlet match. Like I said, I think most of the 13 spots were who it should be. But the issue is we're watching the same people over and over again on this show, which was part of the issue. This was the fourth time we had Shane Douglas on the show. The third time we had Siaki, Daniels, and Legend. The second time we had Raven and D'Lo. And you get the point by this point. It's like I get you had to fill up the rest of the show with something. And we saw in the first show what happens when you keep all the good people for the gauntlet match, but it's like uh, the rest of the show could have been rebooked a bit better to cover for the fact that we are putting, 13 people in a gauntlet match. Ultimately, I gave this match a 4.0 out of 10.
I gave it a 5 out of 10. Like, I'll be honest, after the bull rope match, which I liked, after the ultimate aspects that I like, there was nothing else on the show that I cared about. Even as somebody who likes gauntlet matches, I didn't care.
By the way, I wonder if the IRS is monitoring all these people who win six-figure matches in AEW and are not. I'm going to bet they're not claiming that extra money on their taxes next year. I hope
I
we get.
will.
I
I
hope we
have
get some
a
serious
interesting.
auditing.
I have an interesting thing about that. I just recently got a bonus at work. When the money got put into my account, the taxes had already been taken out.
Yes, yes,
So
but
I'm
but
pretty
these are
sure
also you're an employee. These are independent contractors. They do not have taxes taken out. They just get a 1099 miscellaneous at the end of the year, and they have to they have to make quarterly tax payments based on how they based on anticipated income. You're supposed to make quarterly tax payments, and if not, there can be a penalty at the end of the year. Um,
they're
but
employees. We all know this now.
it doesn't matter whether or not they actually are employees. The fact that they are classified as independent contractors, and I imagine that Tony Khan, for instance, Megan Bain is not getting a W-2 from AEW. Uh, Matthew and Nicholas might, Kenny might, because they have office jobs, but
Mm-hmm.
Queen Aminata is getting a 1099. Oh, Harley Cameron's back. She's a national treasure.
Yep.
Um,
And she's got this mask gimmick. It looks like she's at a going crazy with the mask. It kind of reminds me of Splatterhouse.
Honestly, and this is the first time I've seen it. It kind of reminds me of oh God, what was I gonna say? It kind of reminds me of the Undertaker's Phantom of the Opera mask,
Mm.
except that it's pink. Um, Anyway, so that was the end of the TNA show. Average match quality of 5.1, which it's funny because this is not like this all-time great episode of TNA. However, and we'll get to this here in a second when I talk about the overall enjoyment of the show, I ultimately liked the show was a 5.5 out of 10. There's more good than bad. And we got a lot of good wrestling on the show. And that has a lot to do with that overall match quality rating because typically the average TNA show has 7 matches. And there's always that 3-minute squash match in the second match. And there's always some other random nothing match towards the middle of the card. This had none of that. Um, and we had an almost absurd amount of good wrestling. Are we sure Russo was in sick? And each match was given all the time it needed to reach its potential. And so in my opinion, it led to a better overall show that I had to watch 5 good matches versus 3 good matches, 2 okay matches, and 2 either nothing or bad matches. Now, with that said, that future build, this is where you and I may disagree. I said future build 4.0 out of 10, even with AJ versus Raven, because to me, you just told us there's going to be a world title match with a minimum of 9 to 11 run-ins. And it just being a giant clusterfuck. Because the following people I can almost guarantee are going to interfere. CM Punk, Julio De Niro, Alexis. Slash, Sin, Jim Mitchell, Eric Watts, Jeff Jarrett, and I just thought Vince Russo, and they're probably going to throw in Sonny Saki and D'Lo Brown in there as well. That's 11. And that is way too many people. Now, of course, I could be pleasantly surprised next. Oh yeah, and the mystery person instead of D'Lo. There's the 11. Now I could be way, way, way surprised next week, and they have a match where the only interference is the mystery guy comes in and costs Raven the title, because, spoiler alert, Raven is not winning the world title. But it's TNA. They do things, as we mentioned earlier, they do things to excess, and that's where we are here. And so that gives us an overall show rating of a 4.87. Still a good match, still a good show at the end of the day, and we applaud them for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, hey, what are your final thoughts on this show?
Like, it was a decent show, but it's not. It was an important show. I'll say it was an important show because it was the first Ultimate X,
And that's like
and the
ultimately
bullet and the bullet match was
ultimately
good too, but everything else was just meh.
bullet match.
The bull rope match.
Oh, oh. Um, so it's like honestly, like nothing about this show, like outside of the fact that it's the first Ultimate X match, nothing on this show will be remembered in a month. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a good show, you know. So hats off to TNA. We got another not bad show. I swear they have a streak going here. They have a streak of many not bad shows in a row. We've got a month now.
It's
This
called a
is
winning streak. It has
please
never happened before with this show.
say please don't have a heart attack on the show. Um, but yeah, so that's gonna do it for this week's TNA review on something else. Uh, by the way, before we go, do you have anything on the? And we're recording this Saturday, so who knows what's gonna happen between now and Wednesday. Do you have any thoughts or comments on the stories about TNA and WWE modern day?
I think it's a work. I don't think it's
I
happening.
think I think the dumbest thing would be for TNA to move to Wednesdays. Nothing good could come out of that. It would be a bigger mistake than the Monday Night War attempt. And it's not to say AEW is uber popular and that they're doing 5 million people a week or whatever WWE was doing at the time, but because at that time, it almost was a good idea because TNA had the most loyal audience in the history of wrestling, or no matter what was going on in other channels, no matter what holiday it was, they always did a 1.4 million viewers. It was the most loyal TV audience in the history of loyal TV audiences. And so it's like, you know what? Maybe it's worth an experiment to see if the same 1.4 million people would watch them on Monday. Because the thing is, they would have called that a success. They did not need to beat Raw for it to be a success. But the thing is, they got nowhere near 1.4 million people and it went off. And that was when they were a lot more popular than they are now when they're not even doing 100,000 people on Access. I think it would be a really dumb idea for them to do that. But we'll see how that goes. And, you know, ultimately ultimately TNA may end up being what many people were afraid of earlier before Scott Moore helped turn things around, is that there would just be a tape library in Stamford, because that's what it could end up being very shortly. But anywho, that's going to do it for this week's Something Else. Cyndi, anything you want to plug before we skedaddle?
Yeah. I am starting a new podcast soon.
Okay, tell people about it.
Um, we're
Don't be
gonna
shy.
watch wrestling from 40 years ago.
We already do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Are you trying to compete with us? I only do 40 years ago on Tuesdays. Are you trying to compete with us?
But it's for a different
Sad
company.
face. Okay.
And I
Okay.
plan to having it up on Mondays.
Okay.
Or Saturdays,
Okay.
actually. I can put it up Saturday.
I was gonna say, wouldn't Saturday at 11 a.m. Central be the ideal time?
Yeah, because we're walking in Memphis. We're
Okay.
doing
So,
Memphis. Me and former Jeopardy champion Brian Henniger are going to
Cyndi
be
does.
doing.
Go ahead.
Oh, he's already agreed to this. Um, we're gonna watch Memphis wrestling, talk about it, and we're starting from January 2nd or 3rd, 1986.
All
So
right
this
then.
is when they start being the CWA, and they have the
Hmm.
AWA partnership.
Indeed, 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 indeed. Um, do we have a start date yet?
January 2026.
Okay then. So we're slow. It's a slow build. We'll say that.
Yep.
All right. Well, that then is going to do it from here. Want to thank everyone here for listening. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.